I turned into my parents' driveway just as the sky was going lavender with early winter dusk. My old sedan rattled a little over the pothole by the mailbox, the one my father had been promising to fix since I was 12. In the passenger seat, the grocery store fruit basket rode shotgun, its plastic film crinkling every time I tapped the brake. Red bow, pale grapes, a few oranges, modest and practical, the kind of thing you grab on the way when you're used to living light. At the curb, my sister Sabrina was already there, sliding out of her latest BMW like it had been custom designed to complement her coat. The trunk yawned open, filled with presents in lacquered paper black, gold, and white, ribbons curled and sculpted. She clocked the fruit basket as I got out. "Still minimalist?" she asked, one eyebrow up. "Hi, Brina," I said, lifting the basket out. "Merry Christmas." She smirked, already turning back to the trunk and arranging her tower of gifts so the biggest logos faced outward. The car beeped as it locked. I walked up the path, the cold air pinching my nose, the basket handle digging into my palm. The wreath on the front door was the same one from my childhood, just with new ribbons. I rang the bell. The house exhaled familiar smells: roasted turkey, Morin's sweet potato casserole with marshmallows, something buttery and cinnamon-heavy from the oven. Underneath it all was the scent of the house itself: old carpet, lemon cleaner, and the ghosts of decades of meals. The door swung open and every conversation in the entryway dipped, then paused. Aunts, uncles, cousins, all mid-laugh or mid-gesture, turned to stare. "Nora, you made it," my mother said, her voice rising at the end in surprise. "We weren't sure if your projects would keep you away." "Projects?" Like I'd be in a garage with glue and popsicle sticks. "Wouldn't miss it," I said, stepping inside and nudging the fruit basket next to Sabrina's carefully engineered gift tower. The contrast made my offering look almost apologetic. Uncle Gerald, already 3 drinks in if the pink in his cheeks meant anything, lifted his glass. "Look who's here, still doing that internet thing?" he called out. "What's it called?" "E-commerce," I said. Right. He nodded sagely. "My neighbor sells crocheted owls online. Makes a couple $100 a month. Nice hobby." I let the comment drift past me like a balloon I wasn't responsible for catching. My cousin pressed a glass of wine into my hand, and I took it gratefully. From the living room, the television murmured local news. The anchor's voice rose and fell in a tone I knew well from media training, but here it was just background noise to the real show. Sabrina's career. "Did you see her feature in that magazine?" Aunt Ro asked, already pulling her phone out. "It's not a big deal," Sabrina said, already opening her own photos. "Just some little 40 under 40 thing." She said little, the way some people said private jet. My father stood near her, chest widened with pride, nodding at each photo like he'd personally built every office building in the background. My mother floated between guests, pressing plates and napkins into hands, asking about travel plans and promotions. Tessa, my brother Adrian's wife, appeared at my elbow. "Still in that downtown studio?" she asked. "I could never. I am practical." "I like the space," I said mildly. High ceilings, uneven floors, quiet, a home that didn't shout. At 6, my mother herded us toward the dining table like always, calling seat assignments over clinking dishes. I ended up at the far end between a teenage cousin glued to his phone and Uncle Gerald's bourbon. Gerald topped off his glass and, by extension, mine. "Nora, turkey," my mother called from the head of the table. "Or are you on one of those fasts?" "Turkey's great," I said, taking the plate she passed down. Sabrina began talking about her new Maldives resort membership, savoring every syllable of Overwater Bungalow, while my relatives traded stories about promotions, mortgage refinances, and upgrades. Every so often, a pair of eyes slid toward me, soft with pity and curiosity. The one who left a sensible marketing job for vague internet dreams and a rented studio. Adrian, carving ham with too much force, cleared his throat. "Remember when you announced you were quitting?" he said, chuckling. "Mom nearly fainted. We all told you you'd come back once you got it out of your system." Around the table, heads nodded, clucked, hummed agreement. Advice resurfaced like an old song. Reliability. Benefits. Real jobs. I ate steadily, letting their certainty pass over me like weather I'd chosen not to stand in. From the living room, the TV's volume clicked slightly higher. A voice promised, "A special report at 9." No one at the table noticed. Dessert moved us to the living room, plates balanced on knees, steam rising from coffee cups. The TV kept its low chatter as the local anchor teased the upcoming segment. My mother fussed over slices of apple pie like they were a test she might fail. "You must miss having a steady paycheck," Uncle Gerald said, settling heavily into an armchair. "Budgeting is important. You never know what could happen." "I use budgeting apps," Tessa offered, eager. "You should too, Nora. And there are certificate programs you could get into something stable in under a year." Adrian chuckled. "We're calling this an intervention," he said. "Help you get back on track." "Back to what track?" I asked, but lightly. I sipped my coffee and let their certainty arrange itself around me, a cage made of concern. "What do you even sell?" Tessa asked suddenly. "I've never seen your site." "There probably isn't one," Sabrina said, cutting into her pie without looking at me. "Or it's a tiny shop with, like, 3 listings. On the TV, the news cut to the station bumper. The anchor's voice sharpened, ready for something important. "Tonight," he announced, "an exclusive on one of the decade's most astonishing business stories." No one turned. Plates clinked as forks scraped crust. Sabrina rehearsed lines from her performance review to Aunt Ro, who nodded like a metronome. My mother gathered abandoned forks, worry a permanent set to her shoulders. Then the anchor said my name, and it hit me before it reached them. "Our feature spotlights Nora Lynn, the founder and CEO of Aurelia Collective," he said, "whose reinvention of sustainable luxury has disrupted global retail." The room hesitated. A plate slipped from my mother's hand and clattered onto the coffee table, the fork bouncing once. Voices stuttered, then stopped. Heads turned one by one toward the TV. On the screen, the camera panned across Aurelia Collective's headquarters. Glass and steel catching Singapore's sky, the logo gleaming on the facade. The lower third banner spelled my name, my title. Then came the photo. Me in a dark suit at an economic summit, shaking hands with a head of state. The shot they'd chosen was one I liked, composed, alert, mid-laugh. Captions unfurled the story they'd already written. I had left a marketing job 6 years ago, Aurelia's proprietary clean materials processes, supplier network spanning 18 countries, contracts in Asia in the first 18 months, expansion to Europe and North America by year 3, production now on 4 continents, over 40,000 employees, revenue north of $7 billion. Gerald's bourbon hovered midair. Forgotten. Adrian's phone was already in his hand, screen blazing as he typed my name into a search bar. Sabrina went statue still, her fork stranded halfway to her mouth. My father's voice scraped at the quiet. "Nora," he said, hoarse. "Is that you?" I set my cup carefully on its saucer, the porcelain clink small and precise. "Yes," I said. "It's real." My mother sank onto the edge of the coffee table, knuckles white around the plate she'd retrieved. "You gave an interview," she whispered. "To television, but not to us." "They asked about the work," I said. "You asked why I wasn't grown up yet." The room glowed now with screens. Phones surfaced like periscopes, headlines and photos and numbers reflecting off wide eyes. No one was scrolling for Sabrina's 40 under 40 feature anymore. Uncle Gerald recovered first, or tried to. "All this time," he said, his smile wavering between amusement and discomfort, "and you let us lecture you." "You were very committed to the lesson," I said. The doorbell rang. Everyone jumped. In the entryway, a producer stood with a cameraman behind her, both slightly breathless and apologetic. "Miss Lynn," the producer said, peering past my father, "we were hoping to get a quick home shot, to humanize the story. Just a few minutes." I looked at my family, their faces split between pride, panic, and something like guilt. My younger cousins stared at me like I'd dropped in from another planet. "Not tonight," I said. "This is family time." The producer hesitated, then nodded. "Of course. Thank you." The crew retreated, the door shutting with a soft click. When I came back into the living room, the quiet had thickened. The anchor's voice droned on from the muted TV, his captions marching silently along the bottom of the screen. My father cleared his throat, the old instinct to lead a toast sparking. To Nora, he began. We misjudged. You were ashamed of me, I said. That's different. He blinked. My mother flinched as if the words were physical. You deceived us, Sabrina said, eyes glassy, mascara holding on. You let us believe you were struggling, living like a grad student, that studio, that car. She gestured helplessly toward the window. You lied. I left your assumptions alone, I said. That isn't the same as lying. Adrian lowered his phone slowly. Why keep the studio then? He asked. The fruit baskets and the old sedan. Why not, I don't know, upgrade? Because I like them, I said simply. Money didn't change what fits. My mother's voice, thin to a thread. We were cruel, she said. We mocked you, doubted you. Every time you came home, You were certain, I said. Certainty makes room for cruelty. You were so sure you knew the only right way to live that anything outside of it looked like failure to you. No one argued. The TV, still muted, showed a shot of one of our factory floors bright as morning, workers in clean, efficient lines. I picked up the remote and turned the screen black. I'm not funding kitchens or retirements, I said into the stunned room. Not to buy forgiveness. I'll help where help isn't payment school fees for the younger cousins if they need it. Emergency care, things that matter and don't turn love into a ledger. My father looked as if he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. So what do we do? He asked quietly. How do we fix this? If you want a relationship with me, I said, start with respect. Talk to me like I know what I'm doing with my life, like you don't automatically understand it better than I do. The heater hummed on. Someone's fork scraped a plate. In the kitchen, the dishwasher clicked as it started a cycle. Life, indifferent, continued. No one had anything else to say. The tension settled, not resolved, but recognized. The weather finally moved on. I stood and reached for my coat. Rustling followed as others shifted, half rising, uncertain whether to stop me or let me go. I slipped my arms into the sleeves, buttoned the front, and picked up my keys. Merry Christmas, I said, and opened the door to the cold. On the porch, the night wrapped around me. Sharp, dark, honest. My phone buzzed with missed calls, message previews stacking on the screen. I thumbed them away for now and opened the group chat with my operations team. Segment landed, I typed. See you Monday. By the time I reached the street, it was just me and my old sedan again. I slid behind the wheel, the familiar fabric seat cupping my weight. The dashboard lights blinked awake when I turned the key. The clock edged toward 9. I pulled away from the curb, the house receding in the rearview mirror, lights small and distant. Ahead, the road unspooled through the dark, clear and steady. I drove home like that breath even, hands relaxed on the wheel quietly, simply certain enough for all of us.